Dr. Helen Gemara. We are on Daf Kuf Beis Amud Aleph. We're about 10 lines from the top. We just finished discussing how Yeravim ben Nevat cunningly convinced Klal Yisrael to do Avodah Zarah and how he got people to buy in. And what he did was he made a committee with a tzaddik on a Rosh, and he told them, "Are you willing to be loyal to me and do whatever I say?" They said, "Yes, of course." "And are you willing even to do Avodah Zarah?" So the tzaddik said, "Of course not. We're not willing to sign that we approve of your Avodah Zarah." So the Rasha told the tzaddik, "What are you worried about? You think your Yeravim ben Nevat would ever do Avodah Zarah? It's nonsense. He's just trying to demonstrate that you're very loyal. But don't worry, he's never going to ask you to do Avodah Zarah. So you for sure could sign on it. You don't have to worry about it." And in fact, that's how he got everybody to sign on it. The Gemara tells us that great people were fooled by this signature of the tzaddik. Even the Novi Achia Shiloini was nichshol in Avodah Zarah because he saw that it was signed by the tzaddik on this committee. The Gemara also tells us that there's another person. I'm sorry, Yehu signed it. Right? Chas v'shalom, Achia Shiloini didn't do Avodah Zarah, but Yehu, the king Yehu, who was a good king, he did Avodah Zarah because of Achia Hashiloni's signature. The other reason the Gemara gives for why Yehu, the king, who was a good king, why he was nichshol Avodah Zarah, is because he said, although he didn't say it truthfully, he said he was going to do Avodah Zarah. What was the context? He was going to kill out all of Achav's cronies who were involved in Avodah Zarah. And therefore, he needed to gain their confidence to get them all together. So he would tell them, "You think Achav did Avodah Zarah? Nothing. I do way more Avodah Zarah." So that's how he got them together, and that's how he was able to kill them. But the fact that those words came out of his mouth caused that he should be nichshel in the affair of Avodah Zarah. Which takes us to the about 12, 15, or maybe 15 lines down on Daf Kuf Beis Amud Aleph, and the pasuk starts with V'shachta Sheitim. The Gemara is going to bring a whole series of psukim and darshan these psukim. So I like always looking in where the Torah Shalom quotes the pasuk. V'shachta Sheitim Miku Vani Musar L'chulu V'ni Moisar L'chulu. So Rashi tells us what does the pasuk mean to say? Zok the pasuk v'shachta sheitim amiku, sheitim avodas kechavim al shem sheshatim achareh. So v'shachta sheitim, the shchita or v'shachta could also mean the avodas zarah draws people. The hamiku, we'll see what hamiku means. So it means so Rashi says sheitim is avodas kechavim al shem sheshatim achareh. You follow it lishchoit la'avodas kechavim. So that's what it means. V'shachta shitim, you shechta avodas kechavim. Ha'miku. Ha'miku means hechmiru. You were more chomer. You treated the avodah zarah with greater severity than even the severity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mitzvahs. Why? Rashi says, Sha'armu shekol mi sha'oila l'regel yidaker b'cherev. Yeravim said, if anybody tries to be oila regel, we're going to kill him. He wanted everybody to go bring their karbanos to the Agolim, not to go to the Beis HaMikdash, as we learned last week, because he would have to stand in the Azara near Rechavim, who would sit. Vani Moishe L'chula. What does that mean, Dr. Rashi? Vani Moishe L'chula Kloimer Anoichi Loi Chashti Kol Kach L'chaber Atzmi. Kaveh Yochel the Rebbeinu Shalom is saying, I wasn't so makbid on my own covet. I didn't say that if you're not oil rekel, you get killed. So the Rishoyim were more concerned and treated the covenant of Avodah Zarah with greater severity than HaKadosh Baruch Hu treated himself. Ella Yisurin ba'olma Yisartim. So the way Rashi is first brought now the Moshe L'chulam, it's just Yisurim, meaning the upper basay. All I said that if you don't come to be oil regular, you're going to be over in NSA. Lishna Achrina, Rashi had a different shot. Shitim Klaimer Shetuya Shalahem, their mistakes they're wandering. Shesoru me'acharai, they turned away from me. Hemiku atshchita, they took it to such a level where they would even kill somebody who wouldn't do the avodah zarah. Shechayvay misa kol misha oil regel. They're mechayiv anybody who went to be oil regel. They were mechayiv and misa. Umaniach esagolum. If he went to be oil regel and he didn't go, bring a korban to the avodah zarah. The shacht is lashon shchita. So in the first shot, shachtos means to draw and to like the drawing force. In the second shot, I believe it means shchita means killing. But either way, it's the same thing. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying, I only gave you an assay to come to me, and you made a isur chiv misa if someone would come the other way. Amar B'Yechid Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Heim hemiku mishali. The Oiv de Avodah Zarah treated the covet of the Avodah Zarah with greater severity than I treat my own covet. Ani Amarti kol she'eino elo regel over basei v'heim amru. You know that the Rishonim said, Holo oilo regel yidaka b'cherev. That's the first pasuk we darshan. Now we're going to darshan another pasuk. This talks about the initial introduction of Yeravam to becoming a king. It says, it was in those days, Yeravam Yotza Yerushalayim. Yeravam came out of Yerushalayim. He met a very chashavit, he met a Navi, but Derech on the way. He was wearing a new beged, and we're going to see what that means. The Gemara darshans it. Yosy. This time where this thing started, this whole thing with Yerubim started, that was from Shish Reish, I believe. This time was always going to be a time that was going to lead to Peronius. Rashi tells us, what's the Peronius? Shesham Nechleka Malchus Yisrael. This was the beginning of splitting up of Malchus Yisrael, where we were no longer a unified nation. The Samachle, after this pasuk, it says, Vayikach es hasalma, he tore the beged into 12 parts, meaning it was a symbol that from here on, Klal Yisrael is going to become fractionalized. Zok to Gemara. The pasuk says, "Be'ez pikudasam yoivedu." That's the second half of the pasuk. Let's look at the full pasuk inside, so we get clarity on what's going on here. Hakoil hevel hema ma'asen te'etuim. This avodah zarah that you're doing is hevel. But when the time comes, when the wheels of justice turn, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides and now it's time to put his foot down, they will all be destroyed. Let's see how the Gemara darshans this pasuk. Tana, we learned from Shemir Yosy, Eis mizumenes leperanius. This was a time that was mizumen leperanius. The Eis ratzain. So let's look at the pasuk inside again. By me, it's Oizayin. When the right time comes, and Yisich, I'm going to answer you. On the day that Hashem is going to save us, as Atich, I'm going to help you. I'll protect you. I'm going to make you into a nation that can now even create treaties with other countries. Lahakim Eretz, to build up the land. To re-inhabit desolate places. That's the wonderful news that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, and the Gemara says, this is this time was set up for good, because it was going to be a time of Geula. So it seems like the Gemara is telling us that the time where these good things happened or bad things happened, we're always destined to have these things happen on those days. Then the Torah says regarding the Egel, Uviyoim Pakti, even though I'm not going to punish everybody right now for the Egel, but whenever I have to punish you for something else, I will add a little bit of onish each time to cover for the egel. So basically, I'm going to give you a payment plan. Again, this was a time that was mezuman leperanius. What was this time? I believe the Rashi is going to tell us this is Tisha B'Av. We had Pakti Zok Rashi with Tisha B'Av. Shebechol Hashana me'oisen mem shana she'amdu b'midbar. Every Tisha B'Av night from the 40 years was a Yom Mezuman leperanius. People died. And boy Chazru Meraglim, that was the night that the Meraglim returned, and there was the whole spectacle. And boy Nechav Abayis B'Rishonu B'Shniya, and nowadays we know that's when World War I started as well. Zok the Heilige Mishnah Gemara Vayter. This is the Ma'is of Yehuda and Tamar. Vayered Yehuda Meis Echov. Tana, This was an Ace Muzumenes when he went and married Bashua, who the Mefarshim tell us was an Isha Shein Hagenes Loi, and that led to his sons dying. It led to the Tamar being the Chayiv Sreifa, even though she wasn't killed at the end, but it led to the story where Yehuda said, to you of Esisaref. As Rashi says, Muzumenes Lapronis, Shetamar and his Chayiv Sreifa, Umesu Shneiban of Aaron. Then the pasuk says a different pasuk reduction. You know where Rechavam wanted to have his inauguration? In Shechem. Why? That's where the big event of the inaugural ceremony was going to be. What ended up happening is that they rejected him there, and that's when the Malchus split up to Yeravam. But that's where this bad thing started. This was a place that was always destined. It was a time. It was a place. See, now we're going from time to place. Shechem was a place that was not good for Eden. B'Shechem inu es Dina. Shechem is where Dina was violated. B'Shechem machu achiv es Yosef. In Shechem, Yosef was sold by his brothers, and B'Shechem nechlek malchus beis David. So Shechem is a place that doesn't bring us good fortune. Then it says v'Yeravam Yasem Yerushalayim. This is the pasuk that we quoted earlier. And now the Gemara is going to get into greater detail. Before the Gemara just quoted it to say that this was a bad time. But now we're going to learn the meaning of the pasuk in detail. Amar Chanina bar Papa. Sheyatza mipiska shel Yerushalayim. What does it mean Yeravam left Yerushalayim? He left the list. Now he's no longer in the list of Yerushalayim. He's now cut off from Klal Yisrael, and he is going in his own direction. And they were both alone in the field, Achia Shiloni and Yeravam ben Nevat. What exactly is this new beged that the Novi is referencing? Amar Nachman Kisal Chadosha. It was a discussion that was like a brand new beged. Ma Salmo Chadosha ain't bashum doifi. A brand new beged doesn't have any threads hanging, and he tears. It's a perfect beged. After Yosef shel Yeravam, so to the Torah of Yeravam, loy hoya bashum doifi. He was a massive Talmud Chacham in Nukala Torah Kula. He was a gewaltige guy, Yeravam. Dover Acher, but what took him down? We learned already yesterday. What took him down is his gaiva. He needed that they should bow down to. He needed that he should stand in the Zorah. He couldn't be second fiddle to Rechavam. Dover Acher, and we're going to learn another act of gaiva that manifested in him, that also contributed to him being taken down. Dover Acher, Salma Chadosha, the discussion there was unbelievable. In that discussion and learning between Yeravam and Achia Shiloni, they discussed issues that they had chedushim that weren't heard until that day. What does it mean they're both alone in the field? They were the big leagues. They were like two cedar trees, and everybody else compared to their godless and Torah were like grass. Just like when you stand in a field that's wide open, you could see very, very far. Trump keeps on saying that Russia is a flat land and Ukraine is a flat land. So when someone shoots a bullet, the only thing that stops it is a person. So Asada, you could see for miles around. That's how they saw the Torah. To them, the Torah was completely visible, completely to Achia Shiloni, the Navi, and Yeravam ben Nevat. Then the pasuk goes weiter. Let's have a look at this pasuk. I'd like again seeing the whole thing inside. Lochein, therefore, Titni Shluchim al Moireshas Gas. We're going to be, you guys sent away, Hashem's talking to Klal Yisrael. You sent away Moireshas Gas. We'll see who Moireshas Gas is. It literally means the person who acquired for you the city, the land of Gas. Bate Achzoiv, you abandoned or you double-crossed, because of you lied to the house, La'achzov L'malchei Yisrael. And the Malchi Yisrael will also be abandoned and double-crossed, because they will be given over to the Goyim, to the enemies. So let's see this pasuk inside. L'chein titli shluchim al Moireshas Gas, bate achsav la'achsav l'malchi Yisrael. Omar Rav Chanina bar Papa. You know what happened over there? Yotza Baskel over Amr Lahen. Baskel came out and said to the Eden, Misha Argas Aplishti, David HaMelech, who killed Goliath and thereby v'hirish eschem gas, conquered the land of Gas by taking out Goliath, titnu shiluchem lebanov, you're going to tell him now to take a hike. You're going to tell Malchus Beis David to take a hike because you want to bring in Yerovim ben Nevat. Oh, bati hichsiv, the house that you double crossed, la'achsev, that's going to be double crossed. L'malch Yisrael. So you gave it over to the Malch Yisrael. So what's going to happen to you? Rashi is lefichach tiyu nimsoren la'achsev biad oivdei kachavim shem shatei chazov. They spread bad lies. If someone's the hand from Oil Bracha, Kilu Geizel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Uchnesses Yisrael. It is as if he's stealing from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and from Knesset Yisrael. Shenemar Geizel Ova V'imoi V'yomer Ein Pesha. Someone who steals from his mother and from his father and mother and says, "I didn't do anything wrong. What did I do?" Chaver Hu, he's a friend Ish Mashras to a destructive person. Vein Ovav El HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ovav is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shenemar Haloi Hu Avicha Kanecha. Vein Imoi El Knesset Yisrael. Shenemar Shema B'ni Musar Avicha V'Altito Ish Torah Simech. My Chavar Ish Mashris, Dr. Gemara Chavar Yeravim ben Nevat, he's considered a buddy of Yeravim ben Nevat, Shehishchis Yisrael Lavim Shabbat He destroyed the relationship between Klal Yisrael and Avim Shabbat Shamayim. So somebody asked, okay, so not making a bracha might destroy the relationship to the Rosh Hashanah. But what about Knesset Yisrael? So it could be, the reason why it's Gozel Knesset Yisrael is because by stealing that relationship, it's gonna impact all of Klal Yisrael. We're all gonna lose the shefa. This is a part of a larger pasuk. So let's see the whole pasuk inside. Hikara Yisrael me'al Beis David. Yeravim was a Rasha because he tore Klal Yisrael away from Beis David. V'yamlichu, or because Klal Yisrael did that. V'yamlichu is Yeravim ben Nevat, and they anointed Yeravim to be the king. Vayidach Yeravim as Yisrael ma'achari Hashem, and Yeravim turned Klal Yisrael. He pushed Klal Yisrael away from Hashem. Ve'chtiyim chata gedola, and he was mocking them terrible averis. Zog to Gemara. Vayidach Yeravim as Yisrael ma'achari Hashem ve'chtiyim chata gedola. Amar Abchanin kishtei maklis hamatizo yisusu. Imagine if you take one stick and you whack another stick with it, it goes flying. So too, whether it likes it or not, so too Yeravim forced Klal Yisrael to go away from Hashem. He forced them to be Oivdei Avodah Zarah. V'dizov. The pasuk says, let's read the whole pasuk. Eila advarim ashudim Moshe al Kol Yisrael be'vayardin ba'midbar ba'rava mo'el sof bein paran u'bein toifel. The Lavan v'chatzeres for Dizov right at the beginning of Parshas Devarim. So Zog to Gemara. What does Dizov mean? Zog to Gemara, an unbelievable thing. V'Dizov Amud Vei Rabbi Yanai Amar Moshe L'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Rebbeinu Shalom. It's your fault that Klal Yisrael din negel. You gave him too much. You spoiled them. V'shul Kesev V'Zov Shehishpata Lahen Li Yisrael Ach Yomer Dayoy. There was so much. There was Bizayam. They had so much money that made them cuckoo, that made them farfir. Gorim lahem lasois lahem elehei zohov. That caused them to do getchkes. If you give too much, it could mess things up. Moshel. Ein ari doiris v'noyim, an ari will not attack another animal and roar. Mitach chuba shel teven. If it just finished the salad. El mitach chuba shel boser. If it just devoured an animal, that gives it a lust for red meat, and that will make it growl and attack others. Right? Everybody knows if you have a geshmaka lettuce salad and you go to sleep, you're not going to snore. But after a big geshmaka rib steak with French fries, then you're going to snore at night. Amar Voishia, Ad Yeravam, Ho Yisrael Yoinkin Me'egel Echad. Until Yeravam, Klal Yisrael was Yoinkin means to nurse, but really they were getting punished little by little because of the one Egel Azov that they did. But Mikan Ve'elach. But after Yeravim, where there were two more Agolim that Yeravim placed, Mishnayim Shloisha Agolim, they're getting hit from 3 Agolim. Amar B'Yisrael, Ein Lach Hol Parani Sheparani Shabbos La'olam, Shabbos La'olam. There's no punishment that comes to the world. She'ein Ba'echad Me'esav Arba Ba'echad Litra Shalegel Arishan. That there's not a little bit of Egel Arishan. Achas Me'arbaim Ba'echad Litra is if you had a litra on a balance scale, in order to push the scale down, you'd have to have a little bit of a weight that's more than a litra. 1/24th of that extra, which is a tiny little bit, is added to every paranius. Shenemar, it says, when I'm going to punish you for something else, you know what it means? It means l'achar esrim va'arba doiris. Negva pasuk said. This is pasuk is referring to Hakadosh Baruch Hu is going to punish Klal Yisrael for the egel after 24 doiris, which is by the Churban Abayis when we were thrown out of Eretz Yisrael by the Churban Abayis Rishon. Shenemar, it says in the pasuk. Vayikra, let's see this pasuk inside. It says in the pasuk, Vayikra va'aznei va'azni kol gadol. The Navi saying there was a great voice in my ear. Lamer saying, Karvu pekudai sa'ir. Pashat Pshat in the pasuk is the people, the army that's coming to destroy Yerushalayim are getting close. The ish klei mishchasei biyadai, and their weapons of destruction, of mass destruction, are in their hands. They're ready to destroy Eretz Yisrael. But the Gemara darshans it a little bit differently. The Gemara darshans that it's referring to the Pekudas Ha'ir is referring back to what the Rebbeinu Shem said way back when by the Egel of Yempotki Upakadi Alechem. So now the noise came to me. Now it's Pekudas Ha'ir. Now is the time our Kadosh Baruch Hu said that it's payback time for the Egel, and the Churban Bayis was a kapara. It was an einish for the Egel. Now there were 24 doiros from when the Egel occurred till when there was a Churban Bayis. So Rashi goes through it. It's very interesting. Pasuk said the Chsuv be'Egel v'yoin pakti v'achanami b'mei Tzidkiah, in the days of Tzidkiah, which is in his time, is when the Beis Hamikdash Rishon was destroyed. Kishachavar Abayis Kasav, it says in the pasuk, like we just quoted, Karvu Pekudai Seir, Karv Oisei Maisa. The story is finally coming to fruition. Shneimar v'Yempakti, that Hashem said 24 generations earlier by the Egel. We Maisa Egel at Tzidkiah Chav Dalad Doiros, and if you count it out from the Egel till Tzidkiah were 24 doiros. The first 10 we're going to recognize, but the later ones, unless we know Novi, we won't recognize it. But let's go through it. It's good to learn. B'minachshay nasa Egel. Door number 1. Tevech Hashem Kama Doiros Minachshay Tzidkiah. You have Nachshain is 1, Salmoin Benoi 2, Boaz Benoi 3, Ovid Benoi 4, Yishai Benoi 5, David Benoi 6, Shloime Benoi 7, Rechavam Benoi 8. Now we're getting into names that we're not so familiar with. Aviyah Benoi 9, Asa Benoi 10, Yoshaphat Benoi 11, Yoram Benoi 12, Achazi Benoi 13, Yoish Benoi 14, Amachi Benoi 15, Uzziah Benoi 16, Yosa Benoi 17, Achaz Benoi 18, Chizkiah Benoi 19, Menashe Benoi 20, Amon Benoi 21, Yoshia Benoi 22, Yehoyachaz v'Yoyakam were brothers, the children of King Yoshia, and Umolchu Zer Chazeh. They ruled one after the other, but it was the same generation, for Dar Echarui, which was 23, and Yoyachan Benoi Shol Yoyakam, and Yoyachan, who was the son of Yoyakam, he was the very last king. Harech of Dalad, you have 24 kings. Now, Yehoyakim, he never completed his malchus because the king of Bavel exiled him. He didn't like him, and he replaced him with his uncle. Shahugla of Bavel, Imacherish Ramisker, with the Talmud Chacham that were sent. The Melichu Tzidkiah Doidei Bim Klaimai, and the Bavli authority put Tzidkiah in place because they were looking for a puppet regime, and I guess Yehoyakim was being a little rebellious. The reason why he doesn't list Tzidkiah as another door to be door 25 is because he was really concurrent with Yehoyakim and Yoyachin. The Humalach B'dar Chavdalit. Okay, gewaltig. Fascinating story. Zog to Gemara weiter. Achar Hadover Hazeh. After this story, and if you learn the Navi there was a case where a Navi Sheker and a Navi Emes were there, and the Navi Sheker was ripped to shreds, and the Navi Emes survived. So that was a sign that what the Emes is. The Gemara is going to darshan it in reference to something else. But Achar Hadover Hazeh, Lo Shav Yeravim B'dai Kara. It didn't wake up Yeravim. He was still the same Rasha. Frag the Gemara, my Achar, what is the pasuk referring to after what incident? Zok the Gemara, Amar Baba, this is a very famous story. Achar Shetavsa HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yeravim B'Bigdai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu grabbed Yeravam by the lapel and says, "Listen here, buddy." And he shook him and he said, "What's the matter with you? Why don't you be chayzer? Look at the potential that you have. Vani, va'ata, me, you, and Ben Yishai will stroll the tile beganate. Look at that. Amr loy. So Yeravam asked Hashem, "Mi barash, who's going to be first?" So Hashem answered, "You know who's going to be first? Ben Yishai barash." So again, displaying Yeravam's gaiva. If he's going to walk first, I don't need the whole thing. And he remained a Russia. The question is, the Mefarshim tell us that originally when HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Yeravam, he told him, Chazar bach vani va'atu ben Yishai. So Hashem clearly said that Yeravam is going to be first. So how come the order just got changed? So Mefarshim tell us the order got changed because since Yeravam asked, that costed him. And he got knocked down. Had he not asked, then he would have been Barosh, because that's what the Torah said, that's what the Rebbeinu told him. But once he asked, he was knocked down a notch. But the question is, why would he ask? He heard very clearly. We figured it out. Ani va'ata uven Yishai. So why did he ask? Zogt, Reb Chaim Shlomovitz, das is a Chabal Gaiva. He said, what did you say, Rebbeinu Yishleim? First you, then me, then David? I want to hear that again. I like the way that sounds. Tell it to me again. I like that. That's Gaiva. And that's why he was knocked down. Zogt Eilig Gemor Vayter. Rabbi Bo have a ruggle have a kadosh b'shloishim malachim. Rabbi Bo would often speak about the three malachim that we had in our Mishnah that don't have a chelik in Olam Haba, Yeravam, and Menashe, and it was Yeravam, it was Menashe, and I forgot and Achav, right? So Cholash, he got sick, so he thought maybe it's a kitrik because he's speaking bad against these malachim. So Kabul Alei the Loidorish. He decided he's not going to darshan bad about them. But the Shal Rishonim was a nether or not. Because you can see he violated it. So most Rishonim learned it wasn't a nether, he just thought he wasn't going to do it anymore. And those who learn it is a nether have a shot in why he would have went back on his word. Maybe he didn't. There's different discussions about it. Anyway, Kibul Loidorish, Kibin Hitbach, the moment he got better, so he said, now I'm going back to my attack. He started darshaning once again about the Averis of these malachim and about how they don't have a chelik l'olam haba. So Omri, his Talmidim told him, Loi kabilas halach, Loi darshus behu. Didn't you accept upon yourself that you're no longer going to darshan about them? He said, Inu, those kings, they did terrible Averis. Mi hadr behu, did they do tshuva? Did I know how to be? Did I should change my mind? No. Since they stayed bad, I'm not going to stop darshaning about them. Ravashi, Uki Ashloisha Malachim. Ravashi was learning the Mishnah, the same Mishnah that we learned at the beginning of Perek Chelik, and he stopped his lesson for the day right before the Mishnah talks about the three Malachim. And he said, tomorrow, L'machar Niftach B'chavri. We're going to start talking about our buddies, referring to the three Malachim. Also Menashe, King Menashe came to him in a dream. Is Chazli B'chalmi. Omar, he told Ravashi, Chavroch, would you think you're my buddy? V'chaver D'avuch? You think your father's my buddy? Karis Long? You don't know nothing. How can you dare consider yourself my buddy? And I'll ask you a simple question. Mehecha bos lemishra hamoichi. When you break bread and you make hamoichi, what are you supposed to make the bracha on? What part of the challah? Amar lei lo yadan. I don't know. Amar lei mehecha de bos lemishra hamoichi loy gemiras. You don't have a clue of even how to make hamoichi. Such a simple thing. The chaver karislan, and you call me your chaver. You don't stand to my toes. Amar lei Rabashi says, okay, Agamurli, do me a favor. Taka, teach me where you cut open the challah from. Ulamachar darish nalei mishmach b'pirka. And I'll give you a big plug in shir tomorrow. I'll say, I heard this from Menashe. Amar lei, I'll tell you the answer. Mehecha de karim bishula. From the crust. The crust is on the outside. That's the first part that gets cooked up. That's where you make the bracha. Amar lei, so Rabashi says, so you're a massive tamachachim, Menashe. You're talking very smart. You're a master tamachachim. So my time a kapal chisu. So why were you doing avodah zarah? It makes no sense. You're a massive tamachachim. Amalei, you think you're a big knacker? You don't have a taiva anymore because the Yitzhar for avodah zarah was killed. But you have a hosam. If you would have been there with me, when the taiva for avodah zarah was still there, havas nakita b'shipula glima, you would lift up your beged so that you could run quickly without tripping on it. V'rahata b'shra, you would run after the avodah zarah. In other words, don't be such a knacker. I'm going to take your nun away, because you would never be able to withstand. You would have been way worse than me when faced with the same nisyonis. So now Rav Ashi developed a new respect for Menashe, and therefore Lamachar, when he started learning about the three malachim, Amalu l'Rabbanon niftach b'Rabbosa. Let's start talking about our rebbes instead of saying let's start talking about our chaverim. Achav. Where does the name Achav come from? We darshan it. It's Ach l'Shamayim, meaning Ach oivei. He's being punished. Terrible Yisurim. Ach l'Shamayim. He caused problems for the Shemayim. And Ab l'Avodah Kachavim, but he loves Avodah Zarah. Ach l'Shamayim d'chsiv. Ach l'Tzor Yulad. When there's a tzor, you say Ach oivei. It induces someone to say Ach oy. Av l'Avodah Kachavim d'chsiv karachim ov albonim. There's no greater love than a father to a son. That was the love that Achav displayed towards Avodah Zarah. Pasuk goes weiter. He went even lighter. He went even easier. He tread deeper into the Aveira Bechatas Yeravam ben Nevat. In other words, he was worse than Yeravam ben Nevat. What does it mean he was worse? Amar B'Yochanan, Kalois she'asa Achav kichamurais she'asa Yeravam. The very worst Aveiros that Yeravam did, those were the simple Aveiros that Achav did. Achav did way worse Aveiros than even Yeravam did. So if that's the case, if Achav did so much worse than Yeravam, why did the Torah say he did what Yeravam did? He did way worse. You know who started this whole degradation? Who ruined it? Who ruined the whole pot? It was Yeravam. So he gets blamed for everything. The Gemara says, let's look at the pasuk inside. Again, pasuk is daled by me. It says, Im Gilad, if the city of Gilad, Oven, Achshav, they're going to get punished because they ran after the Shav, they ran after the Avodah Zarah. Hoyubal Gilgal, and in Gilgal, it was so bad, Shvarim Zivchu, they shechted oxen to Avodah Zarah. Gamiz Bechoisam, you know how many mizbeches they had? Ki Golim al Talmei Sada. So you can imagine you stand in the field and you see rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of product growing. That's how many rows and rows of mizbeches there were for Avodah Zarah. That's how bad this scenario was in the times of Achav. You couldn't find a row in a field where there's no getchka there. There was literally every 2 feet there was another getchka, another mizbeach. And Achav went and bowed down to them all. That's like a marathon. When we know long, how do we know Achav is not going to get olam haba? I'm going to rip up Achav. Let's look at the full pasuk inside. I hate just reading half a pasuk. So the pasuk says over here, Hinini mevi elecha ra. I'm going to bring bad on you. The Navi tells Achav. Uvi arti acharecha, and I'm going to destroy you. V'hicharati la'achav. I'm going to uproot Achav. Mashtin bakir. Mashtin bakir means someone who could understand Ashtikal Torah, understand Ashtikal Gemara, have a clarity. Mashtin is someone who can develop his thoughts. The Otzer v'Ozer, which is a double lashon, be Yisrael. So we darshan Otzer is Olam Hazeh, and Ozer is Olam Haba. The Chesiv Echat Elachim Mashtin Bekir, v'Otzer v'Ozer v'Yisrael, Otzer v'Olam Hazeh, v'Ozer v'Olam Haba. Let's have a look at Rashi over here. Rashi says Mashtin Bekir. It means a Talmud Chacham Mesiach Bekiris Liboy. A Talmud Chacham thinking in the chambers of his heart, where he thinks over to get clarity in a sugya. That's what it means. So there was not a single person left. Okay, Gewaltig. So that's how we know Achav did not have any oil mappa. Imri was the father of Achav, and he was a king for a short while because there was a king who rebelled, and he was their general, and then they didn't kill that king, so they appointed him as a general, so he had a short reign, but he was king for a while. Why was the father of Achav Zoicha to be a king? Because he actually added a city to Eretz Yisrael. Shnemar v'yikam es Har Shomer. He bought Har Shomer. May Shemer b'kikrim kesef. He paid for kikrim kesef, so he actually bought a land to join to Eretz Yisrael. But even in Sahar, he built it up. V'yikra Shem Ha'ir Asher Bana Al Shem Shemar Adonai Har Shomer. So he named it after this guy we bought it from. But you see, he bought a property and he added to Eretz Yisrael. What's a little interesting is he bought the property when he was a king, and he made it into the city that hosted the Malchus. But I guess since because Baruch Hu knew that's what he was going to do, he was Zoicha to be a king. That's how I understand it. I might be wrong. Achav was a king for 22 years. What did he do good that he should be Zoicha the 22 years of being a king? It's b'pnei shekiberes haTorah. He was mechabed the Torah shenitna b'chof beis hoisis. The Torah is based on the Jewish alphabet of 22 hoisis. Shenemar. Where do you see this? When Achav was on his way down, the king of the Goyim sent him a message that I'm destroying you. Vayishlach malachim melachim melech Yisrael ha'ira to the city. And he was told as follows: the shluchim said, Koyamar ben Hadad. Ben Hadad was the king who was coming after him. Kas b'cho uzahavchali. All your gold and silver are mine. Lihu uneshechu v'necha toivim liheim. Your wives and children are mine. Keep ge'es mocher. Tomorrow, at this time, eshlach as avdi elecha. I'm going to send the IRS in. V'chavshu es beischa. They're going to search your whole house. V'esbote avadecha, and the house of your servants. V'yakol machmareinecha yosimu b'yadav v'lakach. All the great things, all the things that are machmar in your eyes, they're going to take. The Gemara is going to darshan that this machmareinecha is a new product that we haven't been discussing until now. Something over and above the gold and silver and his wives and his children. V'yomer l'malachei ben Hadad. How did Achav respond? And we're going to soon see that there was some consultation that Achav had before he made this response. But whatever it was, after this consultation, this was his response. You can tell your king, whatever you want in the first round, I'll give you all my gold, all my silver, all my valuables. But the machma deinecha I can't give you. So what was this machma deinecha that Achav was withholding? My machma deinecha, lav sefer Torah, wouldn't it mean a sefer Torah? So you see, Achav had covered for the sefer Torah, and that's why he was zeicha to 22 years of Malchus. Again, this happened after the 22 years of Malchus, or towards the end of the 22 years. Zok Gemara, who said the machma deinecha was a sefer Torah? Dilma avodas kachav. We know Achav was such a bal avodah zarah. Maybe he had some getchkas that he didn't want to part with. It's not likely that that's what it's referring to. Dichsiv, because before Achav answered, he consulted. And who did he consult with? All the Zakanim and all of the nation, everybody said that he shouldn't give it to them. So let's think about this. If it was referring to avodah zarah, would all of the Zakanim and all of the Am say don't give it? At least a whole bunch of people who were still not corrupted would have said, give it, give it. Since everybody unanimously say, don't give it, it must be that it's speaking about a Sefer Torah. Frank who said, maybe it's speaking about Avodah Zarah, and the Zakanim that the Pasuk is referring to is V'dilma Sabi the Bahasava, the bad Zakanim, the corrupt Zakanim. And they were talking about Avodah Zarah, and they were telling him not to give it up, to refuse to surrender it. And Milak Shiv, you find bad Zakanim, because it says, V'yashar Adavar B'einei Avshalom, U've'einei Kozek Yisrael. So you see the bad thing that Avshalom was going to do, he did it in cahoots with the Ziknei Yisrael. So you see Ziknei Yisrael could sometimes refer to bad apples. We have Rabbi Yosef, Sabi the Bahasa. It was the bad Zikadim that Avshalom was in cahoots with. So by Avshalom you could say it was bad Zikadim, because it just says Ziknei Yisrael. But in the Pasuk Yaakov it says Ziknei Yisrael and Kol Ha'am. Hazan Maksiv Chalam, Hachsiv Chalam. So if every Yid was there, it's not shaykh that every single Yid would have cherished and wanted to retain Avodah Zarah. There surely would have been people who would have told the king, give back the Avodah Zarah. The Evshad have a behun tzadiki. There must have been some tzadikim. Uchsevin does say, V'sharti b'Yisrael shivas halofim kol ha'breichem asher lo yikaru l'Baal. I'm going to leave over the 7,000 people whose knees didn't bend down to the Avodah Zarah. V'chol ha'pem the mouths asher lo yinoshak, they didn't kiss it. So you see, they're good people. It's not possible that they would have also told Achav to refuse to return the Getchka. So it must be they were talking about the Torah. Amar Nachman, Achav shokol hayim. Achav had mitzvahs and he had averis. It was equal. He had mitzvahs and averis. He wasn't only a Rosh, he did good things too. Shenemar v'yomer Hashem. When Hashem wanted to eliminate Achav, Kavayachal and Shemaim, there was a discussion. He needed someone to take Achav down, and the plan to take Achav down was that he would induce Achav to go fight a war with the Melech of Babel who wanted to fight with him, and he won't be able to win it. But in order to induce Achav to go to war, Hashem had to get him to do that. So Hashem asked him, who is going to convince Achav to go? Everybody turned away. Nobody wanted to volunteer for the project. So you see that why did not everybody want to volunteer? Because he wasn't Kulei Ra. He had good to him, so not everybody wanted to take him down. We're talking about spirits in Shemayim, like we don't understand what these things mean. How could you say that there is any good in the Achav at all? A person who says about him, Rak loy hoya ka'achav. There was some Rasha that the Torah is referring to, but the Torah says, but he wasn't as bad as Achav. Achav was the worst of the worst. Asher smaker lasas Rabbi Hashem. He gave himself completely over to do Ra. Asher his machshefa of his wife Izebel raised him on and convinced him to do avodah zarah. Utanina, we learned b'chol yom, every day. You know what you do? Hoysa shekelesh shkolim shiklei zahav la'avodas kachavim. She would give a whole bunch of gold coins to avodah zarah. That's what she did for him. That's what she pushed him to do. There are those who explain this, that she would every day she would weigh her husband and she would give his weight in gold to the avodah zarah. That's a great diet plan. I'm sure Achav wanted to lose weight right away. It was probably costing him a fortune. So look how bad they were, through and through bad. Viat Amr Chakaloya, you want to say it was 50-50? Ella, the reason why we say he was 50-50 is because Achav Vatrin b'mamayna, he was a generous man, and he let people benefit from him. So Talmid Chacham also benefited from his generosity. Therefore, Kippur Mechsa, they were mechaper half of him, and that's why not everybody wanted to take him down. So how was Achav taken down? One of the spirits came to Hashem and said, I will get him to go to this war. How are you going to do it? And the Ruach said, I'm going to go out. I'm going to plant a Nevuah Sheker in all of his Nevi'eh Sheker, that they're going to say, they're going to say, Tifta the Gam Tuchal, go and you'll be able to win. I'm sorry. He will tell all the Nevi'im that Achav should go fight and he'll win. And the way all this Nevi'eh Sheker going over to Achav and telling him that's how he's going to win. That's how we're going to get him to go. And forget, that's how he'll go to war and he'll lose. I apologize. He will lose. So basically, the Spirit says, I'll deliver Nevuah to all these false Nevi'im. They're going to tell him to go fight, and he'll go fight, and then he'll fall. So Hashem loved the idea. But Yomer, Tefata, go do that. Vegam tuchal, and you will succeed. Say, get out of here, get out of my presence, Hashem said. V'aseiken, and do that. So Vegam, my Ruach. Who was this Ruach? Who wanted to take down Achav? Amr Rabbi Yochanan, Ruach shel Nevois HaYisraeli. Now, the Nevois HaYisraeli takes us back to the beginning of the Masechta. This Masechta, as we come to the end of the Masechta, is actually coming full circle. Because all the way to the beginning of the Masechta, the Gemara tells us, the Mishnah tells us that they would scare the Edom not to say falsities. And one of the things they would say is that even the people who are hiring you, who you think are so nice to you and they appreciate you because you're servicing them to say false edus, they may show you a happy face, but really they look at you like the biggest lowlife in the world. So even your friends hate you behind your back and look at you like a lowlife. So why would you lie for them? That was the time the Gemara said you told them. Where do you see that even your friends who are hiring you and seem to be making you into a hero for doing this, how do you know they hate you? How do you know they look at you like a lowlife? Because by Novois HaYisraeli, what happened was Novois owned a orchard or a kerem, a vineyard, and Achav wanted it, and Novois didn't want to sell it. So his wife, Achav's wife, the Machshefi Zevel, told him, I have a very good idea. Let's hire fake Edom lowlifes. Let's hire lowlifes, fake Edom, to make up a story that Novois was murdered Malchus, and then we'll be able to kill him. So you see that even when they're describing and discussing hiring the false Edom, they're describing them as lowlifes. That's how we started our Masechta with. So now we're continuing with Yosy Israeli. Yosy Israeli, of course, hated Achav because Achav created fake witnesses to have him killed. So he wanted his revenge. He's in Shemayim and he's going to get his revenge. Now I'm going to go be the one to take down Achav. And he sacrificed to do that because Hashem said, say, Hashem threw him out. Might say, what does it mean, say, Hashem told him? Get out of my presence. I don't want to have liars amongst me. Get out of here. Now is a good time to mention that today was the yard site of Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky Zatzal, who was Titan Emes Liyaakov, who was an Ish Emes. I think Rabbi Yaakov once said, I never lied in my life. He never said a lie in his life. I don't know. His wife never asked him, do I look good in this dress? His wife never asked him, does this new dish taste good? I don't know how he dealt with it. But I know Rabbi Yaakov used to say, Return is open kaligin, aber the emes darf man nicht sagen. Amar Papa, this is what the Welt says. Inchi the park, if a guy is so angry that he's got to get the guy back, I got to take the kama. No, I have to get Achav back. Machav Beisa, he destroys himself. That anger, that need, that lust for revenge will destroy the person trying to get that revenge. And in this case, it destroys Novos because he got thrown out of the Mechitza of HaKadosh Baruch. Unbelievable. Now, if you remember, there's another place in the Masechta that we're coming to a close that we need to remember. The question is, why were the Nevi'ei Sheker? They were legit. A Ruach came to them and told them something. So why were the Nevi'ei Sheker? The Teresh the Gemara says is that the Nevuah of a Navi is not Kaspaklaya Hamiyura. It's not crystal clear. So every Navi, the Nevuah that he gets is subject to his understanding and his interpretation of it. So therefore, it's impossible that two Nevi'im can say exactly the same thing. And whenever two Nevi'im say exactly the same thing, that's a raya, that's a Navi Sheker. So since these Nevi'im heard exactly the same message, they should have known that it was Sheker. And if you remember, the Gemara asked, how are they supposed to know a Gemara in Sanhedrin that that's a Navi Sheker? So the Gemara said no, because the Navi Emes pointed this out to them. That since you're all saying exactly the same thing, it must be that there's a sheker and they didn't listen, so that's why they were punished for their nevuah sheker. So on that, I want to just speak out the beautiful thing that Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says, the Ish Emes. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky said as follows. By the parasha of the Dorim, it says, Moshe said, Zeh HaDovar, Asher Tziva Hashem. This is what Hashem said. And everything else that Moshe Rabbeinu said in Kol HaTorah Kula, Hashem didn't say. Zok Rabbi Yaakov, Vibalt Moshe's nevuah was not subject to interpretation. Whatever he said was exactly as per what Hashem and all the Nevi'im, it was all subject to their interpretation. So there's some of their opinions involved, but not by Moshe. So imagine for the last 38 years or 40 years in the Midbar, Moshe Rabbeinu was saying that the Torah is emes, and never will the Torah be added to, never will something come out of the Torah, taken away from the Torah. The Torah is permanent forever. In other words, there won't be any more mitzvahs, there won't be any more averis. And now Moshe Rabbeinu comes along and says, if you make a nether, it works. You can make your own averis. How you talking? That was against what Moshe Rabbeinu had been saying until now. So that's why Moshe Rabbeinu said, Zeh HaDovar, this is not my interpretation. This is exactly what the Rebbeinu Shalom said. That's what Rabbi Yaakov said. Tonight is also the yard site of my Rosh Hashiva, Rabbi Yishvei Zatzal. But it's late, so maybe tomorrow I'll share some personal vignettes that I had to tell you. Zog to the more weiter. Vayas Achav es ha'ashever. Achav made an ashever. He made an avodah zarah. Vayosef Achav lasos lahachis es Hashem Elokei Yisrael. He made Hashem angrier. He did more averis. Mikol malchei Yisrael ashayu lefanav. More than every melech before him, he was the worst of the worst. Amar Yochanan. Do you know what the difference between him and everybody else was? Everybody else did avodah zarah, but they also believed in Hashem. They were confused. As Eliyahu Novi said, they were Pesach Asifim. But here, Shekosav al Dalsa Shomer, you know what Achav wrote in the Dalsa Shomer? Achav Kafar Belokei Yisrael. I am kafir in the Rebbeinu Shalom. So he only believed in the avodah zarah, and everybody knew that he only believed in the avodah zarah. Lefichach ein loy chelak Belokei Yisrael. Therefore, he doesn't have a chelik in the Abba. He doesn't deserve it. The pasuk goes weiter and says, Yehu, when he was killing out all of the residual cronies of Achav, The Yavakish is Achazio, who was the son of Achav, Vayil Kadeu, and he destroyed him as well. Where did he find him? He was hiding out in Shomron. You know what he was doing there? Amar Abalevi Shayakoder Askaris. He took a Sefer Torah and he was crossing out all of the shames of Hashem. The Chaysev Avoidis Kachavim Tachtein, and he wrote Gagechka's name there. So you see, literally infused by his father into his DNA. Even when he's being hunted, what's he busy with? Doing more Avoidis. Zok to more weiter. Menashe. Menashe was the third king who we said lost his chelik in Elam Haba. Shenosha ka. Rashi says, where Shenosha coming? Sheshaka HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He forgot the Eibishter. Tavaracher Menashe shehinchi es Yisrael lovin shemishamayim. He made Klal Yisrael forget their Rebbeinu Shalom. Uminal andalei osi la'almud osi. How do you know that Menashe doesn't go to Elam Haba? Tichsiv ben shtei me'asrei shana Menashe b'malchai v'chamishim v'chomei shana malach b'Yerushalayim. And here's the punchline: Vayas Asherah kasher also Achav Melech Yisrael. It's almost like a Gzer Shava. Ma Achav ein lechelek le'elam haba. Af Menashe ein lechelek le'elam haba. He's just like Achav, and therefore he doesn't have a chelek le'elam haba. However, the Mishnah brought a machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda Amir Menashe yesh lechelek le'elam haba. He held the Menashe had a chelek le'elam haba. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, Vayisbal Menashe l'Hashem. You see Menashe davened to Hashem. He did tshuva v'yeteloi, and Hashem answered him, and he became king again. Amir Rabbi Yochanan. The machlokes that we just discussed, whether or not Menashe did tshuva and had a chelek le'elam haba, they actually both learned their halacha or their opinion from the same pasuk. They just dash in the pasuk differently. Shneimar says in the pasuk, "When the satim lezava l'chol mamlechos haaretz, Klal Yisrael, from the punishments that they're going to get because of their avodah zarah, will be a sign to all of the world. This is what happens if you're murdered in their Rebbeinu Shalom." Why? Biglal Menashe ben Yechaskiel, because of Menashe. What does that mean? Mar Sover, one Mandarin learned, Biglal Menashe sasa tshuva ve'inu lo yavod. Fakert. It's like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, you know why you're punished because of Menashe? Because he was also a bad guy. But look, he did tshuva, you didn't learn from him. You learned the bad from him, not the good. That's why you're going to get punished. So that's the shita of Menashe did tshuva. But Umar Sover, the Tanakama, who says that Menashe didn't do tshuva, holds Biglal Menashe do have a tshuva. You're getting punished because you're just like Menashe, that you did a variation and you didn't do tshuva. Baruch Hashem, we were zoicha to finish Daf Kuf Beis, and tomorrow, Beis Hashem, we're going to learn Kuf Gimel. So if you think about it, today we just learned a kav of Torah. It's a nice amount, but tomorrow we're going to learn a whole keg of Torah. A good davach, everybody.